Welcome to Gregtech New Horizons, the hardest tech mod pack in Minecraft, where you start by punching a tree, then go through the Industrial Revolution, invent fusion, and eventually grow miniature solar systems for resources. To do all those things, you need lots and lots of electricity, from steam turbines to diesel generators to annihilating antimatter. I decided to make a new world and
What if you just use melons?
what? What does that even mean? Whatever. I got started by punching a tree.
Trees aren't melons, moron.
Well, I don't think the ground is made of melons either, wise guy. Welcome to the Gourden of Grind. As you can see, I've made a terrible mistake, for there is no floor. Luckily, this pack has the gravestone mod, meaning every single time I die, a grave is left behind. Because Steve's burial insurance is so excellent, the grave also comes with a plot of land in the form of a dirt block under it. By dying in the void around 400 times, I can eventually do something else, like maybe walking or jumping into the void even. While I work on that, let me introduce myself and talk about what this run is. Hi, I'm Elephant, and I'm one of the only people to complete Garden of Grind solo, and I'm a certified Gregtech masochist. Clearly, I've learned absolutely nothing, so I'm back for more. So what exactly is the Gourden of Grind anyways? First, as has been made abundantly obvious, this uses the world gen, or lack thereof, of a Garden of Grind run. That means that I'm playing vanilla Gregtech New Horizons, but every single naturally generated block in every dimension has been deleted. I'll have to make my own platforms and use alternate ways of getting resources that might normally come from ore. Because I hate having fun with my free time, I've decided to add on the restriction that every single watt of electricity I generate has to come primarily from melons. That means I can't use conventional power generation, like steam or nuclear reactors, unless I can somehow generate uranium from nothing but melons. This challenge is somewhat poorly defined, and I'll explain it better once I get closer to the period when I have power or a floor. But wait, there's more. I'm also going to be adding a couple of minor challenges to the run just because I find them fun and or interesting in no particular order. First, I can't use open computers or copy people's redstone. I'm doing this because I find it interesting to design redstone, and there are quite a few of the pack's automation challenges that get trivialized by open computers that I haven't gotten a chance to tackle yet, and I'm excited to try them. Next, I can't use rockets or go to space. This one's here because I realized in my planning for this run that there is one part of the late game that's going to be absolute hell due to a combination of a few different factors, and I like making life worse for myself. Also, the rockets are mildly annoying to make, and what better way to avoid that than by causing myself far more unnecessary pain and suffering down the line? Finally, I'm only allowing myself to use compact fusion reactors. These poorly named, oversized counterparts of the fusion donuts are monstrously expensive and time-consuming to make on tier, and as far as I know, this challenge is still possible. I honestly haven't been keeping track of a lot of the recipe changes going on in the current dev cycle. Speaking of, this run will be played on an occasionally updated daily or beta build of the upcoming 2.9 release. Currently, I'm on daily build number 656, and I will announce when I update my game if anyone wants to follow along for some reason. You really shouldn't. This challenge is really stupid. Anyways, back to the void. Beyond just being toppings for my dirt platform, graves in this mod have the sometimes really useful and sometimes really annoying property of spawning skeletons in the dark, with absolutely no respect for needing to be far enough away from the player, like standard mob spawning. Until I can build something to take advantage of them, though, they really only serve the purpose of being nuisances. So rather than letting them spawn, I'm taking advantage of the next big tech in the run, the ability to just leave random garbage on the ground, brought to you by Draconic Evolution of all mods. These piles of trash, in this case hundreds of copies of my own severed skull, have several remarkable properties, including, but not limited to, the ability to defy gravity, being really bad at rendering properly or performantly, having a weirdly high blast resistance, and relevant now, acting as a non-solid block that blocks mob spawns. By parkouring around the sparse corpse islands I've made so far, I can block off all the spaces mobs can spawn and continue working through the night, largely uninterrupted. I don't quite get to all of them in time, but luckily the skeletons seem just as confused by the lack of anything to stand on as I am and aren't much of a problem yet. I keep falling into the void and spawn-proofing my starting island until eventually, after a full hour of doing nothing but dying, I've finished paying my 400 pounds of flesh and can start doing anything else at all. I, of course, use this newfound freedom to build down a block from the center of my platform by dying and dig out a nook so that I can continue dying at maximum possible efficiency. In this way, I can make a very simple me-powered dirt farm. Behold, my unstoppable powers of petagenesis. Now, I know what you're thinking. Elephant, how on earth does dying more help anyone? How on earth are you going to get basic resources? The answer starts just like it does in every Minecraft mod pack, by punching a tree. It's just that the trees here are a little harder to find than normal. I'm not seeing any. The plan is simple. First, I die a lot to make building materials. Next, I get to abuse one of the few advantages of this situation. Because nice, dusty, creepy quarters in the dark are in short supply here, any uncovered block starts growing mobs like mushrooms as soon as it becomes night. From here, there are two main progression paths. The first one starts with a Thaumcraft mob called a peck that only spawns in magical biomes. Some mobs will spawn as Thaumcraft elites and drop loot bags. These bags can contain gold coins that I can use to trade with the pecks to get silverwood or greatwood saplings. For the other method, instead of gold coins, I hope to get a golden apple out of the loot bags and infernal mobs. Using this and a naturally spawned zombie villager with a witch or a splash weakness potion from the bags, I can cure the zombie villager and hope to get a villager with a sapling trade. This also gives me access to wood. Out of these methods, the peck method is much less RNG dependent, especially given that with a specially chosen world seed, I can simply start inside a magical biome, making them very easy to find. Despite this, I decided to go with the villager method. Even though it's much more RNG dependent, I will need villagers later anyways for progression, and I'm feeling pretty lucky. Back to the game, where things aren't really quite as easy as a chart would have you believe. Even though I have infinite dirt, getting it is really frustrating and slow because every single block I place means falling into the void and respawning and running back over. I decide to start work on a basic skeleton farm using the gravestones, but as I'm working on it, night falls and a skeleton starts attacking me. I said, and attacking me. In case you couldn't tell, mob AI is remarkably stupid in this version of Minecraft, and all the graves and skulls on the floor only make it worse. Well, at least I finally have an item that's not dirt and my own severed head. Over the rest of the night and the following day, I finish up making all the graves for the skeleton farm, but I don't have items to make walls with yet, and it would take a prohibitive amount of dirt. I also start bridging out from another side of my island to make a general mob spawning platform. Skeletons are nice and all, and they'll help a lot with the loot bags and infernal mobs I need, but I also need drops from other types of mobs to progress. Unfortunately, as night falls again, I still don't have spare items for walls, and both farms are working a little bit too well. Luckily, when you die in this pack, you also drop a weirdly high amount of human flesh. This time I got 21, and Gregtech++ is celebrated. This will be very useful for finishing the farm once day comes, but for now, I don't think I can do anything except try to punch skeletons to death. As I'm doing that, though, a zombie villager of all things wanders over from my other spawning platform. I'd really love to somehow trap it, but I don't have any control over the current situation, and I can't take advantage of this luck. I still jump around for a few minutes trying to, but I eventually get knocked off and it despawns. Then, not 30 seconds later, this happens. Do you see it? Not one, but two more zombie villagers spawn while I can do absolutely nothing about it. I try to pillar up a few times with random trash on the ground to preserve them, but it's kind of hopeless as more and more mobs spawn around me. Eventually, once again, I get knocked off the edge and they despawn. Did you know that every copy of Gregtech New Horizons is personalized? Mine seems to have picked up a cruel sense of humor. Eventually, the night is over, and after taking inventory of all my piles of flesh and bones lying around and patching up some creeper holes, it's time to start building the walls to my farm so the skeletons don't have free reign of the island at night. Using the draconic place piles as walls is really weird to set up though, so I need to build out like a stack of items above the graves, place the walls around that, and then remove the stack. Unfortunately, the item rendering issues rear their ugly head here and make the whole process really annoying. Look at this, they're completely invisible from one side and they're visible from the other. All that makes this process less like building and more like being a blind man feeling around with a cane. I'm able to mostly finish the farm before night falls again, but the finishing touches will have to wait until the next day, because the block outlines that I was using to line myself up with the right place piles are completely invisible at night. I don't want to just guess at items to remove, so instead I take the time to farm some skeletons in relative safety for the first time. I said, and I'm going to farm some skeletons. This version of Minecraft is just incredibly janky in general, and the skeletons here simply do not respect silly mortal concepts like floors and fists. Half of the skeletons I punch just phase through the ground to their death, and the other half just refuses to be hit sometimes. Occasionally, relogging fixes the invulnerable ones, but sometimes it doesn't, and it makes the whole process really annoying. Of course, now that I do have the ability to contain a zombie villager, I have absolutely no luck on that front, but that's okay, because I still need to farm Thaumcraft elites for the resources to cure it. Speaking of Thaumcraft elites, here's one now. It's already the next night, and I've finished construction on the farm, meaning I can actually start gathering resources from the mobs. It drops my very first Thaumcraft loot bag. I can farm these more efficiently by switching my game difficulty over to hard instead of easy, which greatly increases the probability of mobs spawning as elites, and it also means I generate far more human flesh due to dying. Let's see what that loot bag had. Wow, would you look at that? Not only did I get a golden apple, I also got a splash weakness potion from my very first bag. I know it may seem like I've had Dream come and mod my game, but let me explain what happened. For some reason, the contents of Thaumcraft loot bags are based on the world seed and give rewards in a set order. Rather than use a magical biome start seed for pecks, I've decided to choose a world seed with a very lucky first loot bag because villagers are so important for progression. This will hopefully let me get away with not making a proper mob farm in the Dirt Age, because it's frankly an exercise in futility trying to stop a mob farm made of literal garden soil from blowing itself up with the variety of complete nonsense special creepers Gregtech has. This means that I only need to farm loot bags for emeralds and find a zombie villager to cure. Immediately afterwards, though, one of the skeletons drops its sword. That means I finally have a weapon to use other than my fist, and that farming mobs will be a lot less annoying. Finally, a single baby skeleton spawning doesn't mean I need to jump off the void and kill myself to despawn it. Over the next hour, I'm a construction worker by day and an exterminator by night. I spend my precious time building infrastructure to help me wrangle the various mobs that spawn, such as this staircase for dirt and gravel creepers to explode into conveniently harvestable chunks, or this cell meant for helping zombie villagers recall their trauma by burying them alive a second time. The big project, though, is a covered box to spawn mobs. This is a slightly more controlled environment than the chaos that is my current platform, which should help me pick out an individual mob that I want to keep around. And it also allows for mobs to spawn during the day, which doubles my efficiency of looking for them. In what seems to be a recurring problem with my projects here, I don't quite manage to finish covering the box before night falls, and the instant it does, the box is covered with mobs, with no hope of fixing it until morning. I unfortunately spend most of the night dying repeatedly as I try to farm more loot bags. Even the game seems to have given up, as it stopped giving me real death messages in favor of death.attack.piercing.arrow. Thank you, Gregtech. As the sun rises again, I go back to check on the box only to find that Endermen seem to have stolen my roof. Fixing it luckily isn't too hard though, and this time I remember to actually spawn-proof it. I then go to make a walkway under the box to smack the occupants' feet from, only to find out that building bridges by dropping a raw log pork chop on the ground has its risks. The next night, I finally get a drowning creeper separated from the horde and lure it over to a bridge to explode. Drowning creepers are a normal playthrough's worst enemy. They explode into a huge ball of silverfish-infested cobblestone designed for maximum pain to clean up. This run, however, they're an absolute lifesaver as my only source of water and stone. Unfortunately, Greg had other plans today, and I got knocked off my bridge before it could explode. To add insult to injury, the creeper was an infernal mob and had blocked off my grave with a web that takes forever to mine. Luckily, Greg is a merciful god, and to apologize for my misfortune, a dirt creeper is immediately sent from the heavens to me, giving me my first blocks that I didn't have to die for. Also, I received involuntary assistance getting to my grave from the local menagerie. Remember, Greg knows best. The next day, as I'm cleaning up the dirt ball from the night before, I notice what looks like a zombie villager on the minimap in my box. I go over to try to extract it, and it turns out to be a witch, but I don't notice that at the time. I'll let this clip speak for itself. As impressed as I am with how thorough the creeper was, I need a new mob farm now. It takes a few minutes, but with the dirt from the creeper the night before, I'm able to rebuild it without too much trouble. The next night, however, the unthinkable happens. I get lucky. First, another dirt creeper hands itself to me on a silver platter. Then, I finally spot a real zombie villager on my map. I, of course, drop everything and go box myself in a hole with it while I wait until morning and cure it. A few minutes later, and the villager is cured. Hello.
Rinde,
Apparently, the villager is German. As my island seems to be more than 12 nautical miles from the coast, however, this is international waters, which means I can make my own rules. I'll be using your English cognate. Welcome to hell, Rind. You seem to have pretty useless trades, but I'm sure we'll find a use for you. Like bait. A few nights of loot bag farming later, I get another zombie villager. It seems to find Rind irresistibly attractive and ends up easy prey for my affordable housing program. Unfortunately, it's also a quite useless profession, but having more villagers will help me kickstart breeding them faster later. I also make another pass at getting access to water and stone, but I fall off the map again. I couldn't even tell you what hit me here. Thank you, Greg. Around this time, I finally get my wits about me and remember that villagers can undergo mitosis. For whatever reason, shooting a cookie taped to an arrow at a villager causes it to spontaneously de-age into a child and spit out another villager? I won't even begin to dissect the logic behind that one. Luckily, one of the starting informational quests rewards a single cookie, and although I have no bow to shoot it with, I have dispensers from the infernal mobs. I simply have to make a chamber for Ryan's inner child to come out, and a lumberjack. First try. While waiting for the baby villagers to grow up, I'm finally able to get a drowning creeper with no hint of anything to knock me off my platform around. Finally, at long last, I can drown. And welcome to adulthood, Lausen. Apparently, the cookie arrow preserves villager ethnicity. The sapling trade isn't immediately available, but forestry lumberjacks have 3 total trades they can have. So if I buy this one, I should get a sapling within 2 tries. I go and open up my accumulated loot bags, and along with some spare I had lying around, I end up with 11 total emeralds. 2 go to the grafter, but luckily his next trade is whatever the hell an old fustic sapling is, for 8. And after a solid half-hour of waiting, behold, the world's crappiest tree. Seriously, this thing has literally 3 logs in it and probably wouldn't give a sapling back if not for the grafter. Thank you, Gregtech. Having wood means the game really starts opening up for me. I can start farming and working on getting ores and tools. But that will all have to wait for the next episode. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, and if you want to see more Melon Run, subscribe so you don't miss it. Bye.